backwards abdominal training. How cool can this be? Well, I'm telling you, it is exactly what your trunk does. Functionally, it is what your trunk is taught to do and is anatomically set up to do. We know that the trunk is primarily a stabilizer. That's no secret to anybody. However, continually I see people training flexion, training the spine to be a flexor, training the abdominals to actively make the spine flex. Guys, that's not what it does. Flexion is given to us functionally for free. If you don't believe me, just stand on 2 feet, shoulder width, go ahead and bend forward, and let me know how much your trunk is working. And then do about 100 reps and tell me if your trunk starts to get tired. Unless you are cognitively squeezing your abdominals when you go into that flexion moment, you won't feel a thing. Muscles are reactors. We need to get them to react. In order to do that, we need to load them. The trunk is a stabilizer, therefore in order to load it and keep the lumbar spine from going into extension, we got to challenge it in reverse motions. So let me take you through this little progression that I think you're going to like in regards to training your trunk. First and foremost, you've got to get stable with pillar stabilization. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you down here and we're going to make you stabilize. And we're going to make you have to hold using the band. You've got to get good at those first. You know those. You've seen those all the time. Next, you've got to go ahead and get strong with standing pillar training, which means that you've got to get the ability to keep that spinal neutral and do stabilization and keeping that spine stable in all motions. So I'm going to do pillar stabilization, challenging my lumbar spine in all planes of motion. Side bending, rotation, and primarily extension. Or if you want to call it anti-flexion, go ahead and call it that. From there, we've got to go ahead and add peripheral motion. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and work on doing movement patterns that make me have to stabilize in a peripheral or a long axis position. Overhead squats. I can put it way out here and work at stabilizing. What I'm doing is just increasing the axis to make my trunk have to stabilize more aggressively. You'll need a small band to do that. From there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our trunk into slow, controlled movements backwards. Follow me on this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to let our back go into a little bit of extension, but we're going so slow that the trunk can prevent my lumbar spine from going into extension, and then I'm coming forward. Essentially, I'm weight shifting. That's all I'm doing. I'm weight shifting and making my trunk have to stabilize by going into the backwards movement. That's what I mean by backwards trunk training. Put yourself in this position. Shift to my right side. Now my left trunk has got to do it. If I can't keep the long axis pillar, I shorten it up and I go short axis pillar. Long axis pillar, weight shifting. Weight shifting. But your objective is to keep lumbar neutral. Maybe allow your lumbar spine to go into a little bit of side bending, a little bit of rotation, a little bit of back bending. Let me show you what I mean by that. Now I'm here. I'm going to let myself arch just a little bit, but it's a controlled arch. A little bit of controlled lumbar extension. A little bit of controlled rotation. What I'm teaching my body is how to load in those positions so it's controlled into the motion. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and throw ground reaction forces into that movement. So now I'm going to be out here and I'm going to throw ground reaction forces into that movement, and I'm going to let myself go into rotation. I'm going to let myself go into side bending. I'm going to let myself go in to extension. And I'm going to hope that the vector, the horizontal vector, that's pulling me into extension, side bending, and rotation, the ground reaction forces that are coming up through my lower body are all going to be able to be controlled by my trunk. Now you're working backwards trunk rotation. Pretty cool stuff. Make sure you start and follow the progression very slowly.